Moved by Councillor Harrison McIntyre, second by Councillor Lacey, that the agenda for the Committee of the Whole meeting held on December 14, 2020 be confirmed as circulated. All in favour? Thank you. At this time, if anyone has a peculiar interest, you can call it now or when the item comes up. Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Worship. I'm going to call a conflict on CW42 as I sit on the executive for the Ladies Alliston Ball League. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You didn't get much ball in last year, did you? No. All right, Councillor Lacey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm also going to declare on CW42 as I'm a member of the CRIC Committee.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'll go back to the clerk to identify items for separate discussion and a reading thereof.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. We have CW23, Heritage Advisory Committee, summary report dated December 8th, 2020, as a recommendation. CW42, 2021 designation of municipal significant events, Councillor Lacey, Councillor McClellan, pecuniary interest. CW52, direction for a town-initiated zoning bylaw amendment, 7254, ninth line, New Tecumseth, for direction.
At this time, I'll go to council to any questions. Councillor Jebb will start.
CW52, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Sainsbury. You had your mute on, Councillor Sainsbury. I think it was CW51.
Okay. CW51, Your Worship, and CW54, please.
Okay. Councillor Lacey.
Thank you, Your Worship. CW53 and CW54.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Your Worship. CW21, please.
Councillor Foster.
CW21 and CW55, please.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, go back to the clerk to identify the items.
Thank you, Your Worship. CW21, Police Services Board minutes dated October 28th, 2020. CW23, CW42, CW51, Site Plan Agreement Removal, D11, AL 148, Poetry Living, Parkside Limited, Commercial Plaza, 214 Gray Avenue, Alliston. CW52, CW53, Official Plan Amendment Application, care of Michael Smith Planning Consultant, Belterra Estates, Treetops and Briar Hill West, Subdivisions Holdout Parcels, DEV number 397. CW54, Application for Zoning Bylaw Amendment, NAK, Building Services Limited, care of Caroline Baker, Baker Planning Group, 27 Mill Street East, Community of Tonham, file number DEV 399. CW55, Modification to Official Plan, Appendix F, Provincially Significant Employment Zones. Thank you.
Good, thank. Moved by Councillor McClellan, second by Deputy Mayor, that all items not identified for separate discussion be received and the recommendation therein be recommended to council for adoption. Questions? Councillor Harrison McIntyre.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item CW43 was that, I don't think that was pulled, but there is, it was pulled. If it wasn't pulled, I'd like to pull it.
CW43. Thank you. All in favor of the motion that was just read? Thank you. And our first one is CW2, Police Service Board, and it's pulled by Councillor or Deputy Mayor and Councillor Foster. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I was just hoping you could take my comments back to the Police Services Board. I'd say one of my number one complaints that I've been receiving, I guess forever, is the speeding throughout the entire town of New Tecumseth, the urban areas, the rural areas, traffic violations, and they seem to be on the rise. And I'm getting a lot more complaints than I normally have. So when I was going through the report, New Tecumseth, we're over 50% of that contract, and we pay for over 50% of that contract. So year to date, there have been 1,277 tickets written in Nagilatas, 3,695 tickets in ESSA. So for a total combined ticket, 4,972. In New Tecumseth, there's only been 1,466 tickets issued. So either we have the best drivers in the world in New Tecumseth, Your Worship, but judging by the complaints that I'm receiving, I'm not so sure that that's true. I'm questioning whether we're having enough police enforcement and traffic speeding enforcement in New Tecumseth, and are we receiving our share of the budget and for what we're paying for? Because if I look at the numbers, 5,000 tickets compared to 1,500 tickets, I don't think there's equal representation in New Tecumseth, especially with the OPP vehicles patrolling the roads. So would you be able to inquire about that for me at the ex-Police Services Board, Your Worship, to ensure that we are getting the traffic policing that we want? Thank you.
Good, thanks, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. My question is in the police report. It's actually on page 17, and it relates to the bike, foot, and school patrols. If you look at the 2019 numbers, I use Alliston, Tottenham, and Angus as the three examples. In 2019 in Alliston, there was 72.75. Tottenham, there was 5. Angus was 12.25. Jump ahead to 2020, you have Alliston at 52, which is a 70% reduction. You have Tottenham at an increase of 320%. And you have Angus at an increase of 128%. I guess I'm just asking the question is, these are planned patrols, and if they are planned, why did we see a reduction in Alliston? Why did they see a 4-fold increase in Tottenham? And why did things double in Angus? So that's question number one related to that report. And the second question is on the next page, page 18, relating to the overtime allotment for the Nottawasaga detachment. Currently, as of the end of Q3, they've used up 3,304 hours of overtime. If you extrapolate that over the remaining 3 months, that should probably put them somewhere about 4,000 plus hours, leaving the annual allotment at 7,700. That's a 3,400 hour. That's the equivalent of almost 2 full-time officers. So how are those variances dealt with in the contract? Is that I'd just like to know how that's absorbed, and where exactly is there any credit back Is it applied to future policing or exactly how is it dealt with? Those are my two questions, if I could.
And I'll get back to you both.
Thank you.
Actually, if the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Foss, if you would send that to me by email, then I can work on that right away.
We'll do that right after the meeting. Thank you.
Good, thank you. All right, any other questions in regards to that? All in favor of the motion? Thank you. The Deputy Mayor was okay. Next is CW23, and we're looking for a recommendation. Moved by Councillor Harrison McIntyre, second by Councillor Noyle, that the summary report of the Heritage Advisory Committee dated December 8, 2020 be received, and that the recommendation that the property located at 6594 Nolan Road, Tottenham, Ontario, be added to the register of the significant properties. Any questions? All in favor? Question, Harrison McIntyre.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just turning to that report. I know that I had to declare. It's
Yes.
one of those questions for the clerk. It has nothing to do with what the motion that's on the table right now. But do I need to? I don't. I'm going to say no, I don't, because we're looking at the recommendation 1. All right.
Okay. Good.
So I will move that.
You did so.
All right.
All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next is CW42. Okay. Do we have the gentleman? Councillor Jeff.
I'll move the motion for CW42.
I jumped ahead. We should deal CW31. We have Mr. Meisner here. Kevin, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin.
Sorry.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Kevin.
I don't have anything specific to say other than I'm just looking forward to hearing council's decision on the matter for the train whistle cessation at Third Line Crossing. It continues to be a real problem for the community here. I get messages about it all the time, even just today, about the frequency of the whistle keeping people up here. It's affecting the quality of life of the residents. And just the other night, it was every 15 minutes throughout the night. It seemed like between 3 to 5 a.m. And it's been really affecting the people here. So really looking forward to seeing the motion pass if possible, and just seeing what you guys can do to help us.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lacey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to make a recommendation or a motion that the town contact the train, I guess it would be CN or CP or CN, I guess it would be, just to make sure that they're following the rules about train whistles. I believe that's part of the problem, is that they're not following the standard rules, and the whistle's a little bit more of an excess. So maybe just the town contact CN to make sure that they adhere to the rules that they have set in place.
Okay. Is seconder? Harrison McIntyre is seconder. Questions in regards to the motion? Staff? Think staff would Councillor Beatty?
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm just wondering which rules specifically are they not following? I'm not exactly comfortable with calling up CN and reminding them to follow the rules if we don't know which rules they're in fact not following.
Councillor Lacey?
Yeah, I'm just pulling out the report here. Just give me 1 second here.
Sure.
It's the continuity of the whistling. I'm just trying to find out here where it is here. So it's the continuity of the whistling and the frequency, as well as the duration. So depending on the, I guess the train engineer, it's up to their. Some of them are a lot louder, some of them a lot longer than what states is necessary, depending on the time of day and what they normally do. So,
Chief Hayden, are you with us tonight? I know you've been working on this for quite some time.
Yes, I am, Your Worship.
Could you answer some of the questions that has been asked about the whistle and what your finding is? I know you've been doing the investigation.
Thank you, Your Worship. Canadian Pacific Railway, as I include in the report, run through the town of New Tecumseth on an average of 12 times a day. I do receive a quarterly report from Canadian Pacific Railway, and that's the railway in question that runs obviously through the Tottenham, the west side of Beaton, and then through the Alliston area. They are required, as the report indicates, under Canadian Rail Operating Rule number 14, these trains are required to whistle at all public grade crossings, and they must begin sounding at least a quarter mile upon approach to the crossing. In the case of entering South Tottenham, they would sound the whistles for the crossing at County Road 10. They would sound their whistles at the second line, the third line, the fourth line, the fifth line, the sixth line as they come out of Tottenham. So you will hear a number of whistles on the northbound and a southbound at all of those public grade crossings, Your Worship.
Good.
And to the question, I guess it's coming from Councillor Lacey. I could ask my contact at CP Rail to inquire to make sure that they're meeting the requirements of Rail Operating Rule 14.
Councillor Lacey?
yeah, some of it, what it is they'll actually, I know there's a lot of crossings in around Tottenham, and what some of them actually do is they'll start at the second line and finish at the sixth. So they'll just kind of like blast it all the way through town, or they might do, two very, very, very long ones, as opposed to, I guess it'd be shorter whistles or smaller ones where they would see it at each of the different lines, right? They just kind of blast it all the way through.
Thank you. Councillor McClellan? And then Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Chief Hayden, I'm not sure if he knows the answer or if he can find out. Is there different rules for what they do at nighttime as opposed to what they do during the day for whistling? Thank you.
Through Your Worship to Councillor McClellan, Canadian Rail Operating Rule 14 does not change between daytime and nighttime operations. It's simply as they approach the grade crossings, at grade crossings, and there is a dependency on speed. I believe consistent speed of 44 miles per hour on track speed sort of regulates the normal standard rule.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sainsbury?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Chief Hayden. Is it possible for you to call either the clerk or the fire chief in Markham to find out what they did and why they were able to do it? I believe they've done it in Milton, and get us a link that you could forward to members of council to see whether it was precedent setting, how it affected their insurance and that kind of thing. There must be a report that was done for staff when the council of the city of Markham approved it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I have a motion moved by Councillor Lacey, second by Councillor Noyle. That report, just for Kevin, is there anything else you wish to say?
Not particularly. Just curious to see if we're gonna aim for a quiet zone or not on this matter.
Okay, thank you. That report of fire 2020-03 be received. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Thank you. Thanks very much, Mr. Miser.
So the fire chief is gonna.
Next is CW43 2. Sorry. And we had a conflict by Councillor McClellan and Councillor Lacey. And moved by Councillor Sainsbury, second by Councillor Beattie, that report of Min 2020-54 be received, and further that the events outlined in attachment 1 to report of Min 2020-54 be approved, and the designation as events of municipal significance to facility organizations and groups in obtaining special occasion permits for a provincial liquor license, and further that the clerk, director of administration services, or its designate be authorized to issue letters of approval with respect to the provincial liquor license to the groups and organizations as outlined in attachment number 1 to report of Min 2020-54. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. CW51, Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, this is the one that's up at Gray Avenue, and it was to be a small commercial plaza, and they're requesting that that be removed. Just wondered if a member of staff, perhaps the planner or Director Battery, if you take that parcel of land and its square area, how many houses would that turn into rather than being a little plaza?
I'll go to Director Hoppy. Are you on?
Yes, Your Worship, I'm here. Through you to Councillor Sainsbury. I believe depending on the lot frontage, I believe there's the potential for 8 or possibly 9 lots along that stretch. And Director Vatry, you can correct me if I misspoke.
So 8 or 9. And my second supplementary, Your Worship, if I may, the water for residential. I know the commercial component is built in, so does it matter whether they're going to have commercial or residential for the letter H hold until we resolve the water issue?
Director Vatry.
Your Worship, to Councillor Sainsbury, as part of the rezoning for that property, an H symbol would be added to it, and once the water issue was resolved, they would be allowed to move forward.
Okay. In the meantime, it just remains vacant.
For the time being, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Motion moved by Councillor Foster, second by Councillor Jebb, that report of Ing 2020-36 be received, and further that a bylaw be enacted authorizing the removal of the site plan agreement registered to untitled of the lands at the municipality. Address is 214 Gray Avenue, Allison, and to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the necessary documents required for the removal of the site plan agreement registered on title of the aforementioned lands, all subject to the town solicitor's clearance. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now we'll go back to CW43.
Thanks, Your Worship. May I speak?
Yes, please.
All right. So there is 2 recommendations, and I would like to put forward option 1. This is the one that was that the committee spoke about at our last meeting, and meets everybody's schedules best.
Okay.
No, second, Your Worship.
Okay. Any questions? All in favor? Oppose a penny? Thank you. Carried. Next is CW52 and Councillor Jebb.
Thank you, Your Worship. I make the motion that we choose option 2 for this to help move this application along.
Okay. Second by the Deputy Mayor. Report of PD 2020-040 be received and heard that the council provide direction to staff to begin a town initiative zoning bylaw amendment process pursuant to option 2 as outlined in report of PD 2020-40. Questions from Councillor Harrison McIntyre.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just going to turn to that page. I had marked down option 1 because that was the recommendation of staff, because it would the zoning would get done at the same time as the town's updates. My concern with doing option 2 is that there would be a large cost involved in that.
Councillor Foster.
The last line says the town would not receive the associated fees related to the zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay. Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. Just to Councillor Harrison McIntyre's comment, when I read that report, I guess this is true to Director Hoppy. It was noted in the report that upon further investigation from town staff, a mapping error was identified. So the reason that I would fine with option 2 is that if the mistake is a mapping mistake, when we went to get the mapping completed by the town, then we have an obligation to fix our own mistake. Is that not a correct assumption? And that's why you're choosing option 2, Director Hoppy?
Director Hoppy.
Through Your Worship, to Councillor Foster, yes, that is correct. The town would be absorbing essentially the cost to do the application in-house. It would be a town-initiated amendment.
Cool.
Supplementary.
Supplementary. So the answer is the reason we're not getting the fees for the zoning bylaw amendment is that we would have to accept the fact that even though it was our mistake, we're trying to charge somebody else. That's the reason for the town initiated, is to fix our own mistake, correct?
Director Hoppy.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Thank you for the clarification.
Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Director Hoppy. I know it says in the report that that a regular zoning bylaw amendment would cost around $15,000. Will this one cost that much? Because it's more administrative and just doing our statutory public meeting. Like I don't believe there's as much, or there will be as much work involved in this as there would be a typical zoning bylaw amendment. I don't know if you could speak to that. Thank you.
Director Hoppy.
Certainly, through Your Worship, to Councillor McClellan, I would agree with your statement there. This is a very straightforward application. The hours that we, from staff, that we normally would work into a full cost recovery on a zoning would likely not be incurred in this instance. So it is very straightforward.
Supplementary, Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Worship. I'd just like to second Councillor Jebb's motion for option 2. Thank you.
Did I see anyone else? All in favor of the motion? Oh, Councillor Sainsbury, you just got in.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Director Hoppy. So if it's pretty straightforward, does that $15,235 go down to some lesser fee that maybe you could roughly quote? Or can you not do that tonight?
Director Hoppy.
Your Worship, through you to Councillor Sainsbury, if the resolution gets adopted as it is, there would be no fee applicable.
Thank you.
Okay. Now all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next one is CW53, Councillor Lacey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just had a question to, I guess it's the Director of Engineering. I noticed in the report, it stated that the water allocation, or these properties hadn't been included in the water allocations. So how do we plan on dealing with that water allocation going forward?
Director Battery.
Through your worship to Councillor Lacey, as we stated with the previous report that was dealt with earlier, this normally would have its zoning bylaw amendment have an H put on it until the water issue was resolved. I believe this is in the neighborhood of 50 odd homes, and they wouldn't have been allocated for in the current water allocation.
Okay. Any other questions? Moved by Councillor Lacey, seconded by Councillor Sainsbury, that the report of PD 2020-41 be received, and further that I'm bylaw to adopt the official plan amendment number 56, subsequently in the form included as attachment number 3 to report of PD 2020-41 being enacted, and further that a bylaw to adopt the official plan amendment number 56, subsequently in the form included as attachment number 4 to report of PD 2020-41 be enacted. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. CW 54 and Councillor Lacey and Councillor Sainsbury. Councillor Lacey.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was actually contacted by a number of residents over the weekend regarding this. And with the holidays and with COVID, this was a very large report, and there's a lot of people that would like to speak to this, and they couldn't really make the meeting tonight. So I'd like to put in a motion to defer this till our next committee of the whole meeting, if I could, please.
Seconder, Councillor Harrison McIntyre. Questions on the oh no question on the all in favor? Motion's carried. Madam Clerk, did you wish to explain to the representative here what's happening, please?
Thank you, Your Worship. So for members of the public that are in attendance, this item has been deferred to the next committee of the whole meeting, and that will actually be on January 4th. January 11th.
Good. Thank you. The next one is CW5 and Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Mayor Mill. I'm just looking for some clarification, if I could, related to this. I remember when this came up. I'm looking for maybe just an explanation in the layman's terms, but in one line in particular, any modifications to the boundary of the provincially significant employment zones issued by the province shall be included in Appendix F. If you turn the page and look at Appendix F, you can see all the areas south of they're all covered in that particular area. Can Director Hoppy just explain exactly what's happened here and the significance of this modification to the official plan, please?
Good. Director Hoppy.
Certainly, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor Foster. This notion of the provincially significant employment zone, or they're calling them PZs for short, the timing of the town's official plan in 2018, the town adopted its official plan, and shortly thereafter, the province introduced this PZ concept, which identified a number of employment areas throughout the GTA that were recognized by the province as having more significant importance than other areas. So there was several of these PZ zones identified throughout the GTA, and certainly the lands identified on the schedule to this report in the south end of Alliston were noted and designated as such by the province. So it's largely the lands off Industrial Parkway, including Honda and many of the surrounding lands as is shown on the map. So basically, due to the timing of our official plan, this report really intends to marry up those two processes. So the town is obligated to show this PZ on our official plan. So this matter will satisfy that requirement.
Good. Thank you.
Supplementary, please. Thank you. Thank you kindly. Just to clarify, so it's really just a timing issue. The actual boundaries of the employment zones, it never changed. It's just making sure that this is included as an official part of our own official plan, satisfy provincial requirements. Is that Is that basically what it was?
Director Hoppy?
Through your worship, yes, that would be correct.
Thank you kindly, sir.
Thank you.
No problem.
Councillor Sainsbury.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Director Hoppy. Related to the one that we just dealt with on Gray Avenue, where we're removing commercial zones, where people, when they purchased, thought there would be a little plaza there instead of having to drive all the way to town to do, that sort of thing at convenience stores and so on. That's not a large operation that was going to be there, but because we're supposed to provide one job, I think, for every 3 homes, when we start changing these commercial zones that were approved at subdivision approval and taking away those kind of commercial areas, does that affect this particular amendment?
Director Hoppy?
Through your worship to Councillor Sainsbury, I would suggest it would not. The jobs and people ratios that are in the growth plan are aggregate numbers on a town-wide basis. So I would suggest the previous application that we looked at is a fairly small number. And in fact, it was originally designated for residential purposes. Regardless of that, given the small numbers we're talking, our growth allocations are looked at on a town-wide basis. So there would be no negligible impact, in my opinion.
Good.
Thank you.
Moved by Councillor Foster, second by Councillor Beattie, that report of PD 2020-39 be received, and further that staff be directed to provide a letter to the County of Simcoe pertaining to a modification to Appendix F of the town official plan as described in report of PD 2020-39. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Guess we're almost to the end. Any announcements? Nope. Okay. No public notice. Councillor Jebb, that the Committee of the Whole meeting of December 14, 2020 adjourns at
8:54, Your Worship.
p.m. Thank you. All in favor? Merry Christmas, everyone.
Have a great Christmas. Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Cheers, everyone.
And we didn't pull this one.